Well, it's good to be back with you all again. I've seen obviously some familiar faces, maybe some new folks that are joining us. So glad that you've decided to take some time out of your busy day, your busy week coming up to get a little development. And so, yeah, we've been doing the series talking about all kinds of different things, whether that's managing conflict to leading yourself, personal and interpersonal effectiveness. Today, we're going to be talking about teams and teamwork, and specifically how to get the most out of your team. And as you're working on a team, how to make sure that that team really does function at the highest level. So let me share my screen with you all. And then, oh, Susie, I don't know if you want to put in the chat the participant guide. We do have a participant guide, a little workbook for you that you can use. It's a fillable PDF.
Susie, downloaded it. Yeah, I dropped it.
Nice. Oh, look at that. Well done. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So feel free to download that workbook off of that Dropbox link that Susie put in the chat. It's a fillable PDF, and there's going to be a couple things in there, especially that you'll need a little bit later on. We're going to do kind of a fun activity talking about a particular aspect of team functioning. So make sure you've got that. Oh, greetings, Monique. Good to have you here. Welcome. Awesome. So a little bit about me. I have been a consultant, a client partner with New Leaf Training and Development for a few years now. You can reach me at my email, bob.foose@newleaftd.com. If you also are on Twitter, you can also follow us, not me personally, but our company. And then we exist at newleaftd.com on the internet. Our mission is really to help people and organizations be their best. And it's honestly been really fun, been an honor and a privilege to partner with the college, to work with you all and do some personal and professional development over the course of the last few weeks and months. So it's been super enjoyable. Hopefully, for those of you that have been a part of this, you've experienced or you've gotten a lot out of it. You've enjoyed the experience. But for New Leaf, we offer a number of different things. We've got consulting, seminars, e-learning, coaching, keynotes, like it says on the screen. Obviously, this is one of our online seminars. We really focus in on 3 areas. We want to help people better manage and lead themselves, manage and lead others, and then we also focus in on business financial intelligence. This workshop today is really mainly going to be focusing on the first 2. We won't be talking about business financial intelligence, though certainly the more effective your teams are, the more efficient, let's say, you will be with even managing organizational finances. So there certainly are applications to that as well. And here's our main principle that we'll be talking about during our time, that a team working together effectively can, in the long run, achieve much more than the work of a lone genius. So I'm going to ask you to do something for me. We try to make these times as highly participatory as we can, whether we've got tons of people on there or a few people. And so with a smaller group, you're definitely going to need to participate maybe a lot more than you would if there was a lot more people here. So I'm going to need everybody to chime in. So using the chat function, so open that up, you've got that menu at the bottom, just click that chat button, make sure you're chatting to everybody. But give me your thoughts on this. So think back to a really effective team experience that you've had, where you feel like that team really worked well together, you enjoyed working with one another, feel like you accomplished your goals, you were able to move things forward. Talk to me about what characterized that team. What was it about that team that you feel like really made it such a great experience? So give me your thoughts on the chat. Maybe just put some phrases or some words, adjectives that you would use to describe that team experience, or what was it that made that team function so well? So again, use the chat function, give us your thoughts, and I might pick on a couple of you to tell me a little bit more about that. What was it about that team experience that made it so effective? Good. So John talked about this aspect of trusting each other. Monique, there was mutual respect. Susie felt like we were essential to the success of the company. There was a common goal, sense of being emotionally safe and honest, understanding of tasks, what people brought to the table. That's great. Love it. Okay. Now, think about a team experience that you had that was not very effective and it wasn't very enjoyable. I'm sure we've all experienced things like this. I know for me, when I was in college doing group projects, I would say the pass-fail ratio of those was maybe about 50-50. Times where I felt like it was a great group project, other times it wasn't. I had a friend in college. He said that when he died, he wanted everybody that he was on a group project with to be his pallbearers, because he wanted them to let him down one last time. Maybe we all experience things like that, right? So thinking about teams that you're on that weren't good experiences, put in the chat, what was it about those teams, or what characterized those teams that made them not good experiences or not function well? So put some thoughts in the chat here. All right, thank you, Daisy, for starting us off. There was a lack of communication. Monique, can't stand the people. Yeah, so just something about maybe the personalities, the way that they work together, or something like that. Monique, do you want to expand on that? What was it about those? Was it more personality clashes, different ways of doing things, different values?
I think it was just more like the personality. I think that's what just tends to get to me. And so I'm the kind of person, if I go in and it's just, personality wise, if all that is just off-putting, I myself, I know I'm disconnected. And so I'm just like bare minimal now. What do I need to do? Because I have to do it. Let me do it on my own. And then I'll turn it in, I'll email it, whatever the case is, and then we can go from there. But I think it's more like personality, especially when people are overbearing, of automatically, I'm the leader, this is what you're going to do, without allowing people to speak or do anything, or people who come off really negative, like, fine, we're here because we have to be here. This is, so I think it just has to deal more with personality. But again, if I'm already like, oh, I can't stand these people, then I'm not going to be giving my all, and I'm not going to be invested. I'm just going to do the bare minimum of what I'm required to do, and then that's it.
Yep, that makes sense. Let's see a couple other things. Yeah, Susie, team leader didn't take the others' ideas into consideration. All had to do it. Yeah, all had to do it his way, my way or the highway, right? Nothing that kind of squelches your creativity and your motivation than that kind of attitude. Highly micromanaging, highly autocratic, things like that. Yeah, John. So John, I'd love to hear more. Maybe expand on that thought. No one was invested in each other. Unmute yourself. Talk to us about that. What do you mean by that, and how did that impact the team?
I guess to me is, we're all on the same team. We're all trying to do something. We're all helping each other. I feel like as soon as you're like got your own agenda, or you're doing your own thing and not trying to help each other, I think that's where, that's not a good team. Everyone's kind of like out for themselves kind of thing.
Yeah, that's good. If everybody sort of has their own goal, their own agenda, that's not going to help the team to really be focused on maybe the most important things, or really going for things together. And especially if those things conflict with one another. Yeah, that's good. Ooh, Arian, when the leader not being organized, yeah, that can certainly, like you said, the goals then directions become really unclear. It's like, well, where are we headed? I'm not so sure. I had that piece of paper somewhere, and you're not really quite sure what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, things like that. That can be very difficult. Yeah. That's good. Yeah, people not feeling welcome, able to speak up. All right, so on your participant guide, you should see a list of the objectives, where we're headed during our time today. So we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to start off by talking about, and this is divided into 2 different sessions. So we're going to do half today and then half on Friday. So we're going to start off talking about a similar topic. If those of you that have been a part of these workshops before, we like to start this way, talking about how the results that we get really are the product of our perceptions and our behaviors lead to our results. We're going to be talking about, well, what are some effective perceptions and behaviors when it comes to team excellence, when it comes to getting the best out of our team. So we'll be talking about that. And then today we'll be talking about this whole idea of trust. I think somebody mentioned that at the very beginning of our time. What really characterizes great teams and the most effective teams, they really do trust each other, and they operate from a foundation of trust. And so that's the main thing that we'll be focusing on and talking about today. And then when we get together on Friday, we'll kind of finish up. We'll talk about teams need to have clarity around their direction. Like, Arian talked about, when directions and goals are unclear, that doesn't help anybody. And so we'll talk about what that looks like. Specifically, what do you need to be clear about, and how do you get that clarity around your mission, your vision, and your values? And then we'll wrap it up on Friday talking about the outgrowth of effective teams really is synergy. And we'll talk about, how do you create a sense of synergy on your teams? And synergy is just simply the idea that the sum, the output of the sum is greater than all of the individual parts working alone. And so we'll look at how do you get that on teams? How do you create this sense of synergy? And we'll do a fun little activity around that on Friday. So these are the main things that we'll be focusing on and talking about during our time together. By way of learning agreement, just want to invite you to be fully present during this time. Maybe that means that you turn off your phone or put it on vibrate or something like that. Close other browser windows or tabs, and then be fully present during this time. And certainly I want to make you some promises, a promise that you won't be bored during the time, promise that it's going to be highly interactive, and that it'll also be very practical at the end of our time as well. You're going to get some things that'll be really helpful for you as you move forward. All right, so before I dive deep into what we're going to be talking about, questions or thoughts before we head into the rest of our time? All right, awesome. Thank you very much. Go. All right, so let's start off by talking about this idea of our perceptions and our behaviors lead to the results that we get. If you've been a part of these workshops before, you know that this is a model that we like to use, and it's really appropriate, especially talking about teams and teamwork. We call it the PBR model. So the idea is just simply this, that our perceptions drive our behaviors that drive our results. So our perceptions are really the interpretations we make about the world around us and the people that we interact with, the perceptions that we have about our teams and maybe what teamwork is and how do we get it. Well, that leads us to acting a certain way. And that ultimately leads to the results that we get. All right, we are not in control of the results. We really are only in control of how we see things, how we interpret things, and then of what we do, our behavior, and those things lead to our results. So let me hear your thoughts on this. So thinking about perceptions, what are some perceptions, some accurate perceptions, some accurate ways of thinking that really do contribute to effective teams and teamwork, or that contribute to team excellence? So either unmute yourself or put some thoughts in the chat. How would you answer that question? What are some ways of thinking, some perceptions that really contribute to teams working well together? So what are your thoughts? Unmute yourself or put some thoughts in the chat.
So this is Monique. I would say kind of being excited about what your task is, like what are you assigned to come to as a group to do. Because I think when you're given like a task that you're not really feeling, well, you're not going to go in there excited and wanting to do the work and wanting to do all of that. But when it's something that you are looking forward to, or common goal, I think someone had mentioned common goal in the chat. I think that definitely helps provide better results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So your perception is when you see that goal is actually something that you want, that you like, that you see the value in it. That's going to cause you to be way more motivated. Yeah, that's so true. It's good. All right. Other thoughts? What are some other perceptions that lead to team excellence? Ways of looking at our team, maybe ourselves.
I would say also just believing in everyone who is on the team, that they are capable of giving valuable input, that they are going to be great team members, and also that the goal is important to you. Really believing in that goal yourself, and really exemplifying that to other people, telling them why it's important to you, so they can see your motivation behind it. And so maybe if they aren't feeling motivated yet, maybe they will be, and just letting that sort of shape your behavior.
That's great. Yeah, believing in the team. I think that's so important. We'll talk about that as we get into this idea of trust. But you've got to believe that people are capable, that they want to be there, that they have things to offer, that you you really believe the best in people, right? That people are really doing the best they can with what they have and not assuming negative motivations or anything like that. It's good. Oh, interesting. Yeah, Susie. Yeah, thanks for your thought in the chat. It's classified can feel diminished as a team. Contributions aren't as valuable as faculty or administrators can feel that way at times. Yeah, I feel like maybe you're second-class citizens or something like that, which isn't true at all, right? Which you're a valuable member of the team. Every member is valuable, and they all bring something important to the table. It's good. Love it. right. Oh, Keelan, thanks for joining us. Glad that you're here. We're just talking about different perceptions about effective teams and teamwork. So let's talk about actually behaviors. Let's move on to behaviors. When you're thinking about effective teams and teamwork, what are some behaviors then that maybe naturally flow from some of those perceptions, right? What are some behaviors that lead to effective team functioning? What do great, team members do? What do great team leaders do to get the best out of their people? They're patient, they forgive. That's good. Yeah. Other thoughts? What do they do? Maybe think about, what do you do as an effective team leader? What have other effective team leaders done that have really created a great atmosphere for you? Listening, yeah. Thank you, Monique, allowing everyone to contribute. Again, they're respectful. It's good. Yeah, they see the value in every person that's on the team. It's good. Yeah, they model by example. Thanks, Susie. Yeah, very true. Yeah, they don't ask things of people on the team that they wouldn't be willing to do themselves. Genuine positivity, not mere buzzwords and gestures. Yeah, and people can sniff that out, right? If you're not really genuine about it, but you're just kind of all talk but really no action, you don't follow that up. We definitely know when that's happening. Take turns, share resources, communication, asking for help. They're inquisitive, positive information. Yeah, I think if I can add to what you're saying, Aaron, like effective team leaders, they realize that they don't have all of the strengths. They aren't the end all be all. They don't have all of the information, and they really are dependent on others on their team to come up with good ideas and to move things forward. That's good. Yeah, good behavior, Susie. Yeah, is that a team leader is clear on what's expected. What are the expectations? What are we shooting for? What role does everybody have? Those things are clear. Yeah, all of that really good. Okay, good stuff. Well, if we all did that, we could end now, right? So at the middle of our diagram are principles. So we're going to talk about today, and really throughout the whole course of our time today and Friday, or what are some foundational principles that really will impact our perception? And the main principle we just shared is that teams working together really do outperform the work of a lone genius. So as you look at the research done into teams and teamwork, it's really kind of fascinating. Even teams that don't necessarily have as much skill as maybe a lone genius, actually, when they work together well, they actually do outperform individuals. And in fact, the other thing that's fascinating that you find is that highly diverse teams outperform more homogeneous teams. And so when there's a diversity of culture and working styles and thought and things like that, that really does serve to help a team to perform well. Now, it comes with some maybe problems at the start in terms of just figuring out how to work together. But once they do that, then they're really able to work together well. All right, so as we're going to talk about some foundational principles. The first principle is that trust is the glue that holds teams together. Trust is the glue that holds teams together. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put you into breakout rooms, and I'm going to give you about, I'll give you about 4 or 5 minutes to do this, right? So in your breakout rooms, I'm going to, let's see, we've got, we'll put like 2 breakout rooms together, assign you automatically. So we got kind of 1 room of 3, 1 room of 2. In light of the size of our group here. Oh, Susie, if you want to jump into room 2, I think because you're one of the hosts, if you want to jump into room 2 with that group, that'd be fantastic. So we'll have 2 groups of 3. Spend 4 or 5 minutes talking about this question, maybe having a scribe jot some thoughts. Answering the question, what is trust? So let's say I was, alien from another planet. I wasn't familiar with this concept of trust, and I wanted you to explain it to me. So in your groups, talk about how would you answer that question? What is trust? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What are the components of trust? How do you know when you have it or don't have it? Okay. So I know it's probably maybe very obvious. Well, Bob, it's trust. We just trust people. Well, what do you mean by that? What does that actually look like? So in your rooms, take 3 or 4 minutes and talk about that. And then we'll have you come back, and then we'll have one of your representatives share with the rest of the group what you came up with. All right. So if trust is super important, let's define what we mean. What does it look like? Make sense? Any questions before I open up the room? All right, like I said, 3-4 minutes in your rooms, and then we'll bring you back. So you're talking about what is trust. Here you go. All right, welcome back, everybody. So we had a couple of groups talking about what trust is. How do you know when you see it? What does it look like, and things like that. So let's hear from each of the groups. What did you come up with? Let me stop sharing too, so that we can see each other as well. All right. So which one of the groups want to start? What did you come up with?
Well, I got voted as a spokesperson for my groups.
Perfect. Voluntold, right?
Right. How I summed it up after thinking on it for a bit was, and after we talked about it, was trust is a feeling of safety. It's that feeling that you can be honest about who you are and about, what you're thinking, what you're doing, what you're wearing, how you're acting. Just be honest and have it be received and acted upon just as honestly.
Mm-hmm. Jot that down. Good. All right. Was Aaron, I'll ask you, in your group, was there pretty good agreement on what that looked like, or were there some maybe areas of disagreement?
I came to that idea like near the end of our discussion. So we didn't really discuss it, but we were talking about, it's feeling like you can share things and know that those things will not be used against you. Those things will be considered and and acted upon fairly. And that trust is something that pretty much all of us in the room felt that we do easily. But then once it's broken, it can sometimes be hard to regain our trust.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah, I think it was interesting was that you can share things, and those things won't be used against you, right? You can be vulnerable, you can be open and honest, even talking about mistakes that you've made, right? Or struggles that you have or something like that. Somebody's not going to bring that back later as a way to hurt you or harm you or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. Good. All right. How about the next group? What were some things that you all talked about? What is trust? What makes somebody trustworthy? What does it look like? Who was the spokesperson for the next group?
I don't think we had a spokesperson. So everyone's just quiet. But kind of talked about what I had mentioned. It's like not doubting somebody. I know they mentioned like having faith in the person, or even kind of giving someone the opportunity, not just saying like you can't and therefore you won't handle this, like type of a thing. There was more, and then my dog got crazy, so I don't know if one of you guys want to jump in and finish off, because they were having a good conversation. I just had to deal with my dog.
I get it. Yeah. Susie or Keelan, want to add anything? All right, sounds good. Maybe nothing to add there. Not a problem. So let me go back to sharing my screen. So thinking about this idea of trust, it really is kind of two sides of the same coin. So let me know what you think about this. So I'd say trust is a combination of two things. On one side, you've got the character of the other person, right? You trust somebody that has a high degree of character. In other words, you know that they won't things that you share with them, they won't use that against you, right? They've got a high degree of character. You know that if they agree to do something, they're going to do it, right? They're going to keep you in the loop on those things. You know that if you loan something to them, they're not going to destroy that thing, right? These are the kind of the character qualities that really do make someone trustworthy. So there's a sense of they have a high degree of character. Well, the other side of the coin, if you will, if you maybe think of it like a scale, the other side is competence, right? So we trust people that not only have a high degree of character, they say they do what they say they're going to say, but they also have a high degree of competence in that the area that we are trusting them in, we know that they are able to deliver in that area, right? So for example, would you trust, let's say, somebody who's really you think that person's awesome, they've got a high degree of character, they're honest, and these kinds of things, but they don't know anything about brain surgery. Would you trust them to operate on your brain? No, you wouldn't, right? So you trust their character. You might let them watch your dog, but you wouldn't necessarily have them operate on your brain. And so when you trust somebody, they really have to have those two things. They have to have a high degree of character, but also a high degree of competence in the thing that you are trusting them about, right? So when we think about that as it applies to people that we're working with on our teams, you trust people. Again, they've got that high degree of character. They do what they say they're going to say, but also when it comes to their job, when it comes to their role, they also have a high degree of competence in that area. Let's say if somebody's putting together, maybe an advertisement for some program that you're doing on campus or something like that, and you ask them to do it, that everything's going to be spelled right. That they're not going to do or say something that, might be offensive or something like that. Those kinds of things. They have a high degree of competence. Otherwise, you might not trust them to do a good job. And that might mean that you check on them more often than you might other people. So it really has to be those two things. Okay. So think about somebody that you work with, could be somebody on your team, maybe it's somebody that's even here in this meeting that you really trust. Okay. Somebody that you really do have a high degree of trust in. What is it about that person that causes you to trust them? So either unmute yourself or put something in the chat. So what is it about that person? Is it certain aspects of their character? Maybe it's certain aspects of their competence, but what is it? What causes you to trust that person? So either unmute yourself or put something in the chat. What is it about that person?
I think for me, the people that especially in the office, it's people that have already demonstrated they can be trusted. So, whether it's a conversation we're having where there's, even though like another person's in the room, they're still respectful of that person and whatever that person shared. And so I'm like, okay, this person's someone that can be trusted. Even in tasks and getting things done in a timely manner, even if it's something that I hadn't seen them do before. Again, it's like they've already set an example that they can be trusted. And so to me, like that goes a long way. Like, okay, if you're gonna hold, other people's, things, confidentiality, whatever, then I know that they would do the same for me.
Yeah, that's good. So it's really aspects of both of those things. There's a sense of character, right? Like you said, they're not going to betray confidence, but also maybe you've seen their work and you've seen that what they can do, and you know that they're trustworthy in the work that they put out.
Yeah, on both sides, yes.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you very much. How about one more? How about you, Becky? What characterizes maybe somebody that you really trust? What is it about them? Is it more character, more competence, maybe a little bit of both?
I don't know. I think it's probably more character than competence.
Okay.
I guess it's just the way that people carry themselves. I'm always really like observative about people. I've been a people watcher all my life.
Yeah.
So if they're just very conscious of the way they speak or of who they're speaking with, I always just look out for that. I don't know how to articulate it. Sorry.
Nope, no, it's all good. It's all good. So then on the flip side of that coin, think about somebody that you don't trust at all, right? Whether that's in a work situation, personal situation, whatever it is. So what is it about that person that causes you to not trust them? What aspects of their character, what aspects of their competence? Like I know, I'm thinking of somebody that I've worked with that was a leader of a team, and character all day long, just loving and kind and all of those different things, tolerant, all of that. But in terms of competence, couldn't lead their way out of a paper bag, but was given leadership responsibility, but really didn't do that very well. Nicest person on the planet, but really wasn't a very good leader, didn't really create good team environments, and really didn't know what they were doing in their job. So in that they had that great character, it was really hard to trust them when it came to kind of their work product and things like that. So I'd be so curious, as you think about somebody maybe that you don't really trust at all, would love to hear from maybe a couple of folks. What was it about that person? What maybe aspects of their character, aspects of their competence kind of gave you pause when it came to trusting them? Okay, John, talk to me about what you said. Always trying to figure out their agenda, motive, and reasoning.
Well, I don't know. This is kind of different things. Like they're not exactly a team player, and you're trying to figure out why they're not, and what are they trying to do. Like I can't, in a sense, trust them because I feel like if I make a mistake, they're going to capitalize on that to push themselves up. Where I'm not like that. I guess I have a hard time connecting that because I'm not like that. So I always have a hard time. So I'm always, like I said, if I don't trust someone, usually it comes down to I don't understand where they're coming from. I don't understand their agenda, their motivation, or the reasoning behind what they're doing.
Again, more about that character, as it were, I
Yeah.
suppose, and that. But yeah, for sure, it can make a big impact. It's good. Susie, I don't trust leaders who talk a lot and say absolutely nothing. Talk more about. I'm going to ask you actually to talk more about that, which I know seems kind of counterproductive, but would love your thoughts on that. Oh, I know you're unmuted. Yeah, there you go.
Quite frequently in education, you have these leaders where they talk ed speak, or I call admin speak, and they talk and they talk and they talk and they talk. And you realize after listening to 15 minutes, what did you say? What do you want us to do? What was the purpose of all of that talking? I really didn't understand a thing that you said. It sounds like you were trying to impress us with how much you know rather than actually give us information.
Interesting. Again, yeah, that kind of maybe speaks to both, but certainly more on kind of the character side of things, right? It's like, what's your motive here? Is it really about just kind of propping yourself up, or is there really some substance here? Very interesting. Definitely seeing some reactions from Becky and Monique, so maybe you've experienced that as well. Very, just like a politician.
Yeah,
there you go.
definitely experienced that before.
All right, so one of the concepts as it relates to trust is, Stephen M.R. Covey, who is the son of the late Stephen Covey, who wrote the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He makes an argument in this book that there's actually a speed of trust. And here's what he says, basically. I'll save you some time reading the book. But he says that the lower the trust is on a team or in an organization, it has an impact on two things. It has an impact on the speed and the cost associated in that organization. So the less trust there is, the more time it takes to get things done, right? Because now you need to sort of micromanage people. Now you need to check in on them way more often than you maybe normally would. And then it also increases costs, right? Because now there's more meetings that you have to have. There's more checks and balances and these kinds of things, right? And there might be more mistakes that need to be taken care of later on. And that's going to increase cost in organizations. But if you have a high degree of trust on your teams and your organization, it actually leads to increased speed and decreased trust. So you've probably been a part of teams like this where you really do all trust in each other, you believe in each other, and you can move very quickly together because you don't constantly need to be checking in on each other or second guessing the other person's work or doing rework or things like that, right? And then costs go down as a result of that. It becomes way more efficient. And so there's a lot less cost, certainly a money cost, but also a time cost, reputation cost, different things like that all come into play. So trust is really the foundation of any effective team and certainly any effective organization. So here's what we're going to do to kind of play this out. We're going to play a little game that we call Double Agent. All right, so let me say this too. So we actually play a version of this game called Saboteur when we do live workshops with people in person. As I was talking to Paul Butler, who's the head of New Leaf Training and Development, who developed a lot of this material, we realized that activity really didn't work well in an online format. So we have recreated it, retooled it, and called it Double Agent. So full disclosure, this is the very first group that we are going to be doing this particular activity with. So you all get to be sort of our guinea pigs here to see how this goes. So hopefully it'll be a fun activity, but then also it will kind of bring some lessons to the forefront of our mind. So a double agent, if you've watched any spy movies or read any spy novels or anything like that, a double agent, like it says on the screen, is an agent who pretends to act as a spy for one organization while in fact acting on behalf of an enemy organization. All right, so there might be some double agents in our midst as we complete this next activity. So we are going to play the old game Battleship. Anybody play Battleship? You remember that old game, right? Where I know back before electronic stuff, you had a little board, you put your little battleships down. Susie remembers this, and then you would list off a number or a number on a grid, right? You know, G4, oh, that was a hit or a miss. Okay, so what you have in your participant guide is a grid pattern that looks like this. So you've got 10 letters across the top and 10 numbers across the side. So there are 100 squares in our grid pattern. So 100 different locations. So in the grid pattern, just want to make sure, I have placed 3 battleships. So this is all kind of imaginary. I mean, I've got the finished grid in front of me there. But so there, your objective is as a team to sink my 3 ships. Now, each ship is 5 grid points long. All right. So, you know, it might be, you know, from, you know, F2 to J2, you know, something like that. You know, I might have a ship here. I could have a ship, you know, from, you know, 7A to, well, that's not 5. Let's say 6A, you know, could be diagonal like this. It could be horizontal and it can be vertical. Okay. So 5 grid points together could be where my ship is. Okay. So your job is to sink each of my ships. All right. So, and because of the size of the group, we're actually going to have you stay in one large group and you're going to be playing against me. Okay. So again, your objective is to sink all of my ships. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to put you into a breakout room. You're going to be all together in a breakout room, and then you're going to send one person back into the main room, and they get to call out 3 grid points. And so they might say J4, F10, D7. And I will let you know which one of those are hits and which one of those are misses. And then you can go back to your group and then have somebody keep track of what that looks like. Okay, so have somebody keep track using that participant guide on the blank one, you know, which one's a hit or which one's a miss, so that you can all follow along. Maybe have somebody share your screen in the breakout room. You can do it that way, however you want to do it. Or you could all keep track using your own grids that you've got in your participant guide. All right, so you know how we're doing. And then I obviously will also keep track. I'll let you know if and when you have sunk all 3 of my ships. Okay. So let me hit pause there. Does this part of the activity make sense? Anything confusing, or what's confusing that needs to be clarified?
So do we go in and out of the breakout rooms at will?
You will go in and out of the breakout rooms at will, one at a time. So decide in what order you want to go in, and then in that order, you'll send one person back to the main room, and then we'll send you back into your breakout room, have a little discussion, and then somebody else back. And so we'll do that for a few rounds. Yep, so just one person at a time will come back into the main room. Yeah.
So do we let you know, like, hey, pull me in?
You know, now that I've said that, so I'm just realizing too, I don't even need to put you into breakout rooms because we're all together like this. So, yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll actually just keep as a large group. And then, you know, if you don't mind, I'll listen in. I'm not going to necessarily influence your decisions or anything like that. But as a group, you decide which order to go in. All right. And then, you know, let's say you decide, let's go Arian, and we'll go Becky, we'll go John, we'll go Monique, we'll go Susie, and then we'll go Keelan. All right, Arian, then you're the first one to say, okay, Bob, here are the 3, right? You know, and as a group, you can decide which 3 you want to call out, but only one person requests which grid points. Okay. Nope. I'm going to switch that again. I am going to put you into breakout rooms, and that's going to be important because of the other wrinkle that I'm going to tell you. Right. So we will put you into the breakout room and just have you come back one by one. All right. Other questions?
Okay, so I'm sorry, do we then let you know when we're ready to come back from the breakout room?
I think you
Like,
can do that, or can you
Yeah, because we can
decide?
send you a chat.
Yeah, maybe send me a chat, or I think in the breakout rooms, can't you leave if you want to?
Yeah, you
I
can.
think so. Okay.
Yeah, I think you can. If you have a hard time doing that, then send me a chat and then I'll bring you back in. But I think you can leave if you want to. Each person can. Yeah, remember,
Okay.
don't leave the meeting, just leave the breakout room to return to the main room.
Okay, one more question.
Yes, keep going. Yeah.
How many squares long is the battleship? Was it 3?
Yeah, five
Five,
grid
okay.
points long. Yeah, each one is 5 grid points long.
Okay, that's a long battleship.
It is a long battleship. Yes, exactly. And there'll be 3 of them on here. Okay.
Okay.
So 15 grid points are taken up. 15 of the 100 are taken up by battleships. So you have 85 that are blank, and then you got 15 that have battleships in them. Yeah. All right. Let me make sure I have explained pretty much everything. All right. So here is the twist. It's called double agent. You may or may not have double agents in your midst. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send some private messages to people. If I go to the next screen, the private message may say one of 2 things. Will either say, you are not a double agent, good luck with your mission, or it will say, you are a double agent, good luck with your mission. If you are chosen as a double agent, your job is actually to protect my interests. So as a double agent, you actually are working for me and my team, okay? And so your job is to do whatever you can to make sure that your team does not complete the activity in a timely manner. Okay. Now, I can't tell you where the battleships are. That's one thing I can't have you know, but you can do other things to try to sabotage the team. All right. So, for example, you might spend a lot of time in the main room with us chatting and talking before you go back into the breakout room to tell them, whether it was a hit or a miss. Or when you go back into the breakout room, you might lie. You might tell them something was a hit when it wasn't, when it was a miss when it wasn't, or something like that, right? Or you might decide that you want to stir things up and maybe accuse somebody else of being a double agent, and kind of wreak some havoc that way. All kinds of different things that you can do as a double agent. Yeah, take your time, give wrong info, question other people's info, accuse others of being double agents. Maybe somebody comes back from a room and they say a number, you'd be like, well, that wasn't the number. I actually said that one already. Whatever you want to do, right? Be as creative as you want to if you are the double agent. All right. But your job is to try to sabotage your team because you're going to be playing against the clock. All right. So I'm going to give you just 15 minutes to sink my ships. All right. So if you can't complete that in 15 minutes, then I win. All right. Your job is to sink my ships in 15 minutes. And so as my double agent, I want you to do everything you can to try to sabotage the team. Okay. All right. So now let me see, are there any questions? And then I'm going to start sending some private messages to people. So I'll be watching for that. And again, if you are a double agent, you don't have to tell anybody. They might accuse you of being a double agent. Of course, feel free to deny that. Well, however you want to play it, it's really up to you. Okay. So let me send some private messages here. And and let me say this too. If as a team you sniff out a double agent and there's somebody that you feel like, okay, you must be the double agent, and we can't have you be a part of our team anymore. You are welcome to call them out. And then what I will do is I will put them into a separate breakout room. It'll be a holding tank just for double agents. All right. So as a team, you can decide at some point, you might, oh, Monique, she's not really helping us out here. You must be a double agent. Let me know. And then I'll send Monique or whoever you decide into a separate breakout room.
Hey,
so
don't plant no seeds.
so they can think about what they've done. All right. So. All right. So. Questions? Feel free to throw some questions out. I'm going to send out a couple of messages here. All right. Oops. Okay. All right. Mhm. Oh yeah. All right. I think I sent a message to everybody. So you either got a message that says you are a double agent or you're not a double agent. Okay. So you either got a message that said one of those two things. Okay. So what I'm going to do is let me stop sharing and see, make sure I've got everything except. Okay. So again, your objective is to sink my battleships. All right. So I'm going to send you into your breakout room. So you're going to give you maybe 2 minutes to strategize. And then after those 2 minutes, decide who you're going to send back into the main room to deliver the first 3 grid points. Okay. And once that person comes in, that's when I'm going to start the 15 minutes. Okay. So once that person comes back into the main room, we'll start the 15-minute timer, and then we'll see how it goes. Sound good? Okay, ready? All right, I'm going to open up the breakout room, give you let's say give you kind of 2 minutes to strategize, and then send the first person back. All right, here we go.
You're muted, Bob.
It mutes me as soon as I head back into the main room. All right, so
Right.
okay, 15-minute timer here. So what are your coordinates?
Let me exit full screen, and then it was B9, E5, and H2.
E5 and H2. Those are all misses.
Okay,
All misses.
alrighty.
All right, go back and talk about it, and then send your next back. Send the next person
I
back.
think you have to send me back.
Oh, I do. Okay,
I
all
don't
right.
see a button for that.
You can't do that. All right, so I will send you back. All right, Becky, what do you got?
Hey, Bob. Okay. So how about G4?
That's a miss.
Darn. Okay. A6.
A6 is also a miss.
Oh no. F10.
F10 miss as well.
Oh my gosh.
3 misses.
That sucks. Okay.
All right, so
Uh,
to go back into the breakout room, I think you can send yourself back in. Maybe down to the bottom. Do you see? Is it the 3 dots? You can click join breakout room or something.
got it. Okay, thanks.
All right, good luck.
All right, thanks. Bye.
There you go. I was muted. Sorry. Galen? I think you're muted as well. There we go.
F1, F5, J5.
F1 is a miss.
Ah,
What was the other one?
F5.
F5 is a hit.
Ooh, yay.
And J5
Five.
is also a miss.
Oh,
So
and then you
F-
don't even have to tell us the truth, do you? Okay.
No, I do.
Oh.
I do have to tell you
do
the
you?
truth.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
you do.
yeah, yeah.
They,
I'm
that's
not,
right.
I won't
They
lie.
don't.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I leave here and you'll put me back to the breakout room.
Yeah. So actually, you can bring yourself back. So if you click, maybe click breakout rooms or click maybe the 3.
I'm not
button.
seeing breakout rooms. I get the red leave button. Where's the
Do you
breakout
see
room?
do you see 3 dots?
Oh God, what am I supposed to click into? Oh, breakout room, brain on. Hello.
And then that should send you back into the breakout room. Like, yeah, there you go. Perfect. All right,
Okay.
John, what do you got?
Okay, so they want to go for I8.
I8 is a
Yeah.
hit.
Okay. C3.
C3 is not a hit. That's a miss.
Okay, and then F6.
F6 is also a miss.
Okay.
So you hit
And-
on I8, but not on the other 2.
Okay, send me back.
Yeah, yeah. So I think if you click either the 3 button or the 3 line or the 3
Oh, okay.
dots or the breakout,
Okay,
then you
there
can
you
go
go.
right back
Okay.
in. Yep.
So
All right,
first of all,
Susie,
this is
what
a
do you
lot of
got?
fun. H7,
H7 is a hit.
G6,
G6, that is also a hit.
A1.
A1 is a miss.
Okay,
All right, 2 hits and a miss.
got it.
Nice work. All right, the time is up. I'm just going to give you maybe one or two more minutes. Maybe we'll do one more round and then we'll
Okay.
call it. All right. All right, welcome back, everybody. So you were able to sink one of my battleships, and a little bit longer the time. So this is good to even help me know kind of how much time to do for this. So we went maybe 6 more minutes over. So what would that be? So about 21 minutes total is what we did. You were able to sink one of the battleships, but not all 3 of them. So let's do this first. So who do you think, you had a guess, who do you think your double agent or agents were? What are your guesses?
Becky and Arian,
Do you
or
think
Becky and Monique.
and Arian
I
or
think it was-
Becky and
I think it
Monique?
was Arian and Becky.
Okay, so let me ask Becky, don't answer if you were or not, but what were some of the indicators that possibly Becky was a double agent?
Because she's so not obvious to be a double agent.
Exactly.
It was purely nothing she did. It was totally a gut feeling.
It was just a gut feeling.
Because with experience with Becky, she's always been very helpful and she's always been trustworthy. So I thought she would be the perfect double agent because nobody would expect her.
Aha, yes, is always the least expected is the one who did. Yeah, that's good.
Arian kept trying to derail the conversation.
Yes.
Oh,
He
yes.
So my Yeah.
start talking about something else entirely instead of concentrating on the squares.
Interesting. Okay, so maybe that was
So
kind of the
my
double
theory
agent
was-
strategy.
my theories was that it was nobody, and you just told us there was a double agent so that we wouldn't trust one another, and it
Interesting.
would hinder our
Okay.
progress
Uh-huh.
by our own, like we'll do ourselves down.
Okay, all right. So Becky, how does that feel being accused of being a double agent like that?
You know, I went back in the room and they were all like, it's gotta be her. We know it's her. So that was really discouraging and made me not want to keep participating.
Interesting. Okay, all right. Arian, how was that for you to be accused of that?
It was a little angering, but because
interesting.
I was like, I didn't realize I was delaying the conversation. So I mean, if I was, then it was just by accident, and
Okay.
so I was like, oh, okay.
All right. Okay. Well, let's see. You can either use your real hand or the raise hand function. Will the real double agents just raise your hand? Let us know who you are. There were none. So Monique, you were right. There
I
were
knew
no double agents in this particular exercise. Yes. So the idea was to get us to think about, like, who do we trust? Why do we trust them? And even specifically to think about, how does it impact a team if you have a belief, a perception that somebody's out to get you, right? So let's kind of step away. You all did great. Thanks so much for participating and trying to have fun with this. But so let's now draw some lessons as it relates to trust on a team. Okay, so talk to me about what does this teach us about the importance of trust and trusting each other and being trustworthy? So yeah, let's draw out some lessons. What did you observe and what's the impact? You know, what was the impact, I should say this, of thinking that there were double agents? How did that impact the team?
Well, see, that's why I was saying I thought that there was none is because you spend more time thinking about who is a double agent rather than what the task at hand. So you spend
Yeah.
more time thinking about who you can and cannot trust rather than just trusting everyone and trying to get the job done type of a thing.
Mhm.
So that was one. And then kind of hearing both of them, like, I know this was a game. So this was like an all fun and games, of
Yeah.
course. All the reasons why people were saying it was Becky is because Becky basically was so trustworthy that it'd be interesting if she wasn't, type of a thing. So those were all positive comments, but still how they felt was not positive. And I think that even though we all know that this was a game and this was fun and stuff like that, the fact that just accusing somebody could make somebody feel, as Becky mentioned, like, hey, you don't want to participate, or as Arian mentioned, kind of like you didn't even realize what it is that you were doing that had people thinking they were, I think that that's kind of like in other settings as well. If we focus more on the people and whether or not they're credible or we can trust them or anything like that, when they haven't given us a reason why we can't.
Yeah.
And say something.
I have another thought. So
Yeah.
I've had people where I have really good friends or people I trust. Like I pretty much trust everyone in the chat. But when it comes to a game though, they become a different person. So I'm just saying, like, I don't know your competitive sides enough. So I noticed that, like, I've worked with a lot of sweet people, and then it comes to a game and it's like, ooh, okay.
Right.
So I just want to kind of throw that there. When it's a game situation, I find it harder to trust than in a work situation. So
the competitiveness comes
yeah,
out.
oh, yeah, yeah.
Totally get it. Yeah, totally get it.
100%, John. I binge watched Survivor over the weekend.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Which season?
The latest one, 41.
Okay. Yep.
And there's that whole, I'm a trustworthy person in real life, but this is a game and it's completely different. It always makes me think, what would I do in that same situation? I would lie, cheat, steal. Yes, absolutely, to get $1 million to win that game.
Yeah. Well, and that's and that part of that game, certainly that wasn't built into this game, right? The idea was, hopefully that you would want to work together, right? You were only competing against me, not against each other. So you did have a common goal together. So let me kind of share some thoughts here. Let me share my screen and see how these resonate with you, right? So as you think about what are things that we often do that prevent us from creating an atmosphere of trust in our teams, one of them is gossip. Right? We start talking about one another behind each other's backs about things that they did or didn't do. And that gossip really does kill trust, doesn't it? It really kind of poisons the well, and it certainly keeps us from trusting other people, and it maybe causes other people then to not trust those other folks. So certainly something we want to watch out for. Are we talking behind other people's backs? And even in this game, talking or thinking, thoughts about other people certainly diminishes our trust about them. Micromanaging wastes time, doesn't it? If you really believe that you got a double agent in your midst, you're going to maybe not believe everything that they say. You're going to have to keep checking up on them and double checking their work. Again, it has to do with that competence aspect of trust. But if we don't trust someone's work product, if we feel like we have to micromanage them, that's going to waste time on a team. And blame cultures kill confidence and innovation. It almost became kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like Arian talked about, like if I feel like I'm being accused, well, maybe I'm not going to want to contribute as much as maybe I would normally, right? If I feel like you really don't trust me, if I feel like you're blaming me, I'm not going to give you my best work. And that's what you see in organizations where it's more about, what did you do wrong, as opposed to, well, let's talk about some solutions and where we can move forward. And then if you think negative, you find negative. Obviously, I planted in your mind this idea that there would be double agents, knowing that there weren't, but you didn't know that. And so the reality is, if you start to look for fault in people, well, you're always going to find things, right? If your mindset is to always look for negative things in other people, things that they're doing wrong, you can always find evidence of those things. But if you look for the positive, if you look for the benefits and the things that people bring to the team, you're always going to find those things too, as well. So the question on a team is, do you tend to have more of a negative view of people? Is that your perception? Or do you tend to believe the best in other people? Because if you do that, that's going to cause you to see them in a certain light. And then the reality is people don't come to work intending to do badly. The question is, do you have a view of people that really believes the best in them and believes that nobody is out to sabotage, nobody's out to be a double agent. People, by and large, generally want to do a good job. So whenever you see someone maybe doing something kind of strange, or they say something that kind of makes you question them, instead of believing the worst of that person, can you reframe the way you think about them and say, okay, I bet their intentions are good here, and I want to explore a little bit more about what they meant by that. Right? Again, like I said, believing the best, assuming positive intent from people. So I'm curious, as you see this list, what are your thoughts about that? I know we've just got a couple minutes left here, but yeah, thoughts, comments about each of these things and how they tend to really do hurt trust on a team? So obviously you want to be thinking about yourself, right? Like you can't change other people. The only person you can control is yourself. And so it's like that old quote from Gandhi, right? Be the change that you want to see in the world. So it really starts with you. So the question for you is, do you avoid gossip and talking behind other people's backs? Do you avoid micromanaging people? Do you avoid blaming other people? Do you think negatively about other people, or do you think positively? Do you assume positive intent? And do you realize that everybody is doing the best they can with what they have? If you live that way, that's going to create that ripple effect, right? As you live that way of trusting other people, they're going to reciprocate that and want to reciprocate that for you as well. So that's really the foundation of any team. Trust is the glue that brings a team together. So when we get together next time, we're going to be talking about team clarity and team synergy as well. And so I'm excited to revisit our time on Friday, or I'm excited to continue to talk about our discussion as we get together on Friday. But hopefully this is helpful for you to begin to think about this idea of trust and what is it, what brings trust to a team and what detracts from a level of trust on a team. So that's all I've got for today. Like I said, excited to finish our discussion as we get together on Friday. Otherwise, that's all I've got. I'm happy to stick around if anybody has any other questions or thoughts, or Susie, you've got any kind of final thoughts before we end here?
No, I think you closed that out beautifully. Thank you for joining us. Hope we see you on Friday.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you on Friday.
Thank you, Bob.
Bye.
Thank you, Susie.